Angels Care Home Health, serving Hayes and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
I love the nurses that come and see me.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible.
Since I learned about Angel Care, I would recommend them to anybody.
Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.
Eagle Community Television presents Community Connection with your host, Mike Cooper.
Hello and welcome again to Community Connection from Eagle Community Television. Thanks for watching. Thanks as always to the producer and editor of our series, Jeff Durall. We're at Hayes High School in the library today on a Community Connection with Hayes High journalism teacher, Bill Gasper, as we talk about the Jackie Engel Award, of which Mr. Gasper was the recipient. Occurred back on April 10th in Wichita as Advisor of the Year. Well, Mr. Gasper, how do you see your role as advisor to students at Hayes High?
Well, a journalism advisor ideally will provide the tools and the skills that they need, and then pretty well step back. And I listen in and get involved, but primarily our student publications, especially our newspaper publication, is pretty well self-driven. I mean, they come up with story ideas, they figure out who they need to interview, they figure out their interview questions, they go out and get the information, they write the stories, they put it either on the online or they put it in the newspaper. And the same way for Yearbook as well. I mean, I'm there, I'm there, to make sure that say, okay, or do we get this covered? Especially in Yearbook, hey, do we get football pictures? Do we get this thing pictured? Who's doing that? And just kind of like have daily meetings and make sure that we stay on track.
Do you ever ask for your input on story ideas or areas to cover, those kind of things?
Well, they either ask and sometimes I offer. I mean, I'm a role, I believe an active advisor, and some advisors maybe take a total hands-off approach. And I'm not one of those, especially in high school, that wants to be surprised when the newspaper comes out. I kind of want to know what's in the newspaper and or the yearbook. I want to kind of know what they're writing about and whether they're on the right track. I don't necessarily want copy to cross my desk or an editor's desk and they say, wait a minute, this is way off. I mean, we can't even use this. And so, I give them my input. I tell them that's, my primary is like, that's potentially dangerous. That might be a potential problem.
From your long experience in journalism prior to that and in the, I guess, the real world of journalism, perhaps. Okay, back a year or so ago, I suppose, we were sitting in your classroom talking about the awards your students had won, a whole wall full of honors that the students have won. The Kansas Student Press Association, May 6th in Lawrence. You had some kids entered in that. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we took about 18, I'm going to say this wrong, 18 or 19 students qualified in approximately 30-some events, and we ended up placing in 15 of those events. And we ended up taking in Class 4A second in what they call the Sweepstakes Award. We were hoping to do it for the, we won state the previous 2 years, the Sweepstakes Award, or we called state championship. This year we came up 3 points short to Bonner Springs, so we were close. But I'm still proud of the students. They worked hard. We had some great entries. It's like I tell them, sometimes the judges just don't quite agree with what you do or what you don't do, and a different place here, a different place there, and we would have been right there in the thick of things, and we would have won our third consecutive, which would have been really, really, really neat.
Yeah, that 3-time winning would have been a nice plum, but yes. Nonetheless, as you say, the competition pretty steady and pretty heavy.
Yeah, journalism is really strong in Scholastic journalism is really strong in Kansas. I think most people probably have heard about the Pittsburgh High School, where they did some investigative reporting on the high school principal and found out his credentials weren't quite there. I mean, they brought national attention to Scholastic journalism. So I mean, and that's the way it is throughout the state of Kansas. Very, very strong.
Kansas Press Association, pretty strong supporters of journalism students in Kansas, you think, Bill?
are you talking to the actual Kansas Press or Kansas Scholastic Press Association?
Either one.
Kansas Press Association, I really can't answer to that as far as Scholastic wise. I mean, when I was in the business, Kansas Press Association was excellent for as far as support, and Kansas Scholastic Press Association for student or scholastic journalism is very good. And if you have difficulty, you have legal questions or whatever you might need, they have some resources there that they can go to. If they can't answer it there, I mean, it's a small staff. If they can't answer it there, they can go to to other places like Scholastic Student Press Law Center in Washington, D.C. is a free service. So there's a lot of places you can go to try to keep yourself on the straight and narrow.
Tell me about, in your 13 years of teaching, qualities you see in the students who come to journalism classes, Bill. What do you see as a student that's going to excel in journalism?
Well, I like to say that student journalism teaches and gets students ready for the real world. In other words, they need to be creative thinkers. They need to be problem solvers. They need to be good communicators, and they need to be able to work in a team. And I think if you look at a lot of job descriptions out there, a lot of people will say we want people that can think creatively and solve problems and work together in a team and have good communication skills. And those students excel in journalism and, just overall well-rounded knowledge and, typically, intelligent, but primarily creative, problem-solving type kids.
Well, and I think you've heard, of course, obviously, that parents are really concerned about writing skills of students too, and that's really a core part of what you do.
Absolutely, especially in my newspaper class. They're expected to write more and more frequently, and those students are typically the ones that like to write and like to go out and talk to people, because not only do you have to know how to write, you have to be able to go out and ask questions, and that's difficult for some high school students, especially when you're going up to a complete stranger and saying, hey, I need to talk to you about something. So it takes a special kind of person there. Now my yearbook folks, they don't have as much writing to do, but they still have to do some interviewing because they're more photography and design based, but on every photo, I expect them to find somebody that's in that photo and get a direct quote from somebody to talk about what's going on in the photo or why they like what they're doing or why they did what they're doing. And so they still have to go talk to people.
Do you think, Bill, your students have an awareness of the history that they are working with, not only the history of journalism, but the yearbook? I mean, we've got yearbooks from our kids, right, when they were here. And those memories, those histories that are going to be permanent, basically.
Absolutely, and at the first day of class, I make sure that they understand the awesome responsibility that we have as yearbook journalists. I mean, I say, do you know anybody else that is keeping the history book for Hayes High for this year? Now you may say, or you may respond and say, well, nobody reads it. Nobody looks at it. I said, well, it is still that year's history of Hayes High School. And that's why it's so critically important that they go out and make sure that every aspect is covered and covered accurately. Because when we look back, well, how did we do in football that year in 1952? Oh, well, we were 7-2 that year. Or 1946, oh, they only played 5 games that year. I mean, it's just it's so critical. And it's such an important part of high school and high school journalism. And unfortunately, not to high school level, but the college level, they're kind of just doing away with yearbooks. So maybe it's more difficult to come up with I mean, there's no history there. And even the newspaper itself, also, we bind those up in volumes, and that's a historical record as well. So a lot of research there for people to
And you
look back
tell
on.
those kids that maybe not next year or the year after the yearbook comes out, the parents reference that, but you can guarantee that they're going to reference it later on.
Absolutely.
When those kids are maturing and coming back.
Absolutely.
Tell me about your acceptance speech that you did. That acceptance speech where that student who helped get the program started again when your early teaching days here at Hayes High.
Okay. Well, the Jackie Engel Award is started in 1990, and it was named after a McPherson high school advisor, well known, and she was, of course, the first recipient. And so it's an award that's given by Kansas Collegiate Media. college, collegiate media. And so high school wise, and then I gave a speech there in Wichita, and then I also gave a speech to the Kansas Scholastic Press Association to just advisors. Well, the student's name is Kaylee Lyon, and now I'm trying to think of her married name. Now she works at the Hayes Daily part-time. She was my first editor. And so I credited her with, and her and some others like her, but I know that she was one of the driving forces. When I first took over, they were going to, they had abandoned the Yearbook journalism program here. And because the previous advisor was called up to the military, and so they said they couldn't find somebody. And I had just sold my newspapers, was watching on television, and heard about it. But the reason why it even got to that point where they were looking for yearbook teachers, because Kaylee and her parents and some other community members started a petition, and they petitioned the school board to bring back the yearbook and the newspaper and the journalism program. So she was my first newspaper editor. So that's kind of, I credited her with, you know, helping keep the program alive and keeping journalism a vibrant part of our high school community, if you want to say.
Indeed.
Call it that way.
A very important part. I think a lot of people would have to agree, Bill.
And I apologize to Kaylee for not knowing. I can't think of her last name. Kaylee, oh, man.
It'll come.
Think?
Yeah, next Thursday it'll
Well,
probably show up.
Well, I'll see her byline in the Hayes Daily News. That's where I'll see it.
That's where you'll see it, yeah. And a phone call probably coming as well. Tell me about, if you would, the overall motivation for Bill Gasper into teaching. I mean, you had a long career in running newspapers, owning, I believe you owned paper?
Yeah, I owned newspapers in Ellis, Kansas. That was my first newspaper. I bought that in '83.
And it was a review, right?
Yes, Ellis Review. And then I was there until 1989, but I maintained ownership. But I went to work for K&N Energy, so I did 6 years of corporate relations, and then I came back and bought the Hoxie Sentinel paper, and I ran those two conjointly, in which I sold in 2004. Well, there's a variety of reasons. I mean, my wife and I decided we kind of wanted to get closer back here. I had just undergone open heart surgery, and we kind of decided that I told in my speech, I said I wanted to do something a little less stressful, like teaching. Well, that didn't quite work out as well. The kids often ask me.
Well, you should have rethought that one, Bill.
Kids said, when I tell them I had open heart surgery, they said, "You have a heart?" I mean, that's just that's bad sometimes.
Oh.
So anyway, I was working with high school students in Hoxie on plays, and I also direct a spring play here. And I loved theater, and I liked working with high school kids. And I really felt it was important. I thought, well, I love journalism, and I want to be able to maintain or try to instill some good journalism techniques in today's students. And with the media under attack, I mean, in today's society, we need a whole bucket load of Kayleys to help us out and to change the perception of the media. And I sometimes say it. You know, with the way the media is, sometimes people are looking over here to the left, some people are looking over here to the right, you know, politically speaking. And sometimes the story is right here, not me right here in the center, and they're missing it. And, you know, truly be balanced and tell both sides.
Somebody's got to be there to tell that story, too.
Yes. And that's what I try to instill in my young people, say, just because you don't agree with something, you better get out there. I always use school lunch as an example. I said, well, doing a story on school lunch and nobody says they like school lunch for whatever reason, you're going to go find me at least one person that loves our school lunch. Sorry, cooks. But that's maybe a bad example, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, you always got to at least find that other person that's on the other side, because otherwise it becomes really lopsided.
Bill Gasper, Hayes High journalism and teacher, and our community connection.
Angels Care Home Health, serving Hayes and the surrounding areas, is a Medicare-certified home health agency providing quality skilled nursing and restorative therapy services to patients in their homes.
My Angel Care physical therapist taught me how to do exercises safely.
Angels Care is there to help 24 hours a day, and all services are covered 100% by Medicare for patients who are eligible.
it gives us independence in our home.
Angels Care Home Health. We serve patients.